Hello, this is Coran Latigo from Power and Pounders Drum Magazine, and it is June the 16th. I almost said May again. Last time I said May, and I had to catch myself, but it's June 16th, 2021. Summer is here. It is full upon us, and it's probably in the 90s, I think. It depends on where you are and everything. As Alice Cooper would say, school is out for summer. So summer, school is out and everybody's going on vacation. Things are opening back up now. We have the theme parks, movie theaters, concert venues are starting to open back up. So, come on out here, spend your money, Disneyland and all that good stuff. So as I said a couple of weeks ago, I want to kind of mix up things. Like I said, normally this is mainly a drum channel, but I want to introduce different artists, different bands, different groups and so forth. So today, my guest today, very, very good close friend of mine. She's probably played just about everywhere and played with everybody. And I just want to welcome my good friend, Stephanie Getz, to Power and Pounders. Hi, Steph.
Hey, Corey. Good to see you again.
Yeah. It's good to have, good that you could spend some time with us a little bit. And I know you've been busy and everything. How you been doing with this the past year of this pandemic stuff?
Let me just say, I'm glad it's opening up. Yeah. It's been nuts and we've been through it. And yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think, yes, as of yesterday, I think the masks were supposedly coming off.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It depends on if the businesses are going to continue to allow people to wear them.
Yep.
But I think everybody's just getting kind of sick of the whole mask thing.
I know a lot of people who are fed up with it.
Yeah, we're the last state to actually, have the mask thing come off. So. That
are we? Is it? I think I figure it's between us and Michigan.
I think so. Yeah. So, but for you guys that don't know, Stephanie's kind of like my homegirl. She's from North Carolina.
North Carolina.
We have another. Now, what part of North Carolina are you from?
Was born in Raleigh.
In Raleigh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Raleigh is actually growing right now. So Raleigh is I think 2 hours from Charlotte, which is where I grew up.
Okay.
So
it's a beautiful state.
Yeah. Have you been back lately? I
went back actually in November. So that was nice. Yeah.
So you were in the fall time. Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So she's my homegirl. So it's good to have that Carolinian connection.
Yeah.
So as I stated, you've played, Stephanie plays she plays the brass instruments, which is flute, clarinet, sax, whatever other brass instrument that's out there. She plays it, and she's very good at it. She teaches. She played in the OC Orchestra, Symphony Orchestra, OC Orchestra, I think it was, here in Costa Mesa. So, yeah. So basically, I told her, reached out to her, wanted to come on, and now she's here now. So I'm glad that she took the time out to join. So just kind of tell everyone your background in music, how you got started playing. Was the flute your first instrument, or was any other instrument your first instrument, or how did you start playing music in general?
Well, my mom was a great pianist, and she played in the church for long time, starting from when I think she was a teenager. And so actually my parents met when she was playing piano at a church, and they got married and had me first. I'm the oldest of several siblings. And so she was constantly playing. And so when I remember, I guess I was like 3 or something like that, I would sing with her, and she would play, and we would do recordings. We would do these reel-to-reel recordings, and then give them to our pastor or something like that. And so I don't know how much of that we did, but I do remember doing that, and it was a lot of fun. And I learned how to I guess I learned how to work with somebody else like that. I started developing all those musical skills, but my brother and I would be used to hearing her play all these beautiful pieces, and so it got to be a part of us very young, at a very early age. And then when I was, I want to say 6, I guess, I started playing the recorder. I should pick one up here. It's floating around here somewhere.
Yeah.
But I've got my flute here.
Okay.
But I started playing the recorder. When I was 6, we moved to England. We were in North Carolina, and then we moved to England.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And we were there for 4 years. My dad worked with IBM and had a chance to transfer. And so my dad, my mom, me, my brother Trevor, and my brother Kuhn, all of us moved to England. And I started playing the recorder. So at the schools in England, they had this, in elementary school, they call it primary school there. So in the primary school, they had this big bucket of recorders, and they were all different sizes. Mm-hmm. And so I signed up for a recorder class and started playing. But the bigger kids were able to pick up the bigger recorders because they were able to, their fingers would fit, you know.
Okay.
And I used to look at them like, I really wanted to play one of those big recorders, but my fingers wouldn't fit because I was only 6. So I just used one of the small standard size ones, which is called a soprano recorder. That's just standard. So, and I loved it. And so I played it all the time and figured out things by ear and, my favorite TV shows. I would listen to the themes and figure out how to play them. And I was so excited when I would learn a new note. Like I remember the day that I learned how to do F sharp.
Oh, wow. And
I came home and I'm like, I know how to play F sharp. It's like this, and I played it on my brother's like, oh, So my brothers who are listening afterwards to this video, you loved it. You know that secretly you loved it, but no, they didn't. They hate it. But I did that. I played a lot and loved it. And my dad, he was working with IBM, going into the office all the time in England, but he was also traveling back and forth between the States for these different projects they were doing. And when he came back, then he would always bring special gifts, as you need to do as a parent. And, our favorite cereal, he'd bring back Cheerios and what's that one called? Golden Grams. Whatever it was that we liked at the time, Oreos, peanut butter, all the things that we couldn't get there at the time. And then some special things, maybe some favorite tennis shoes or, whatever. Yeah. And one day he brought a flute for me. And I must have been like 8 or 9, something like that. And he got it at a pawn shop in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And it was this Yamaha flute and like beginner, intermediate kind of level flute. And I was thrilled. And so that's the way I started playing. And so, of course, I put it together correctly the first time. And I was just on the mountaintop. I was so excited,
Oh, there's a lot of pieces on the flute.
Yeah, there's 3 pieces, so I had to figure this out, so I put it together. I'm like, this is good. And then the hole, the blowing hole, I put my mouth over the entire hole and then blew as hard as I could. And it didn't work, Wow. I was devastated. And I think I started
taking it all apart again, huh?
No, I mean, that's not the way you blow into a flute, So, but I didn't know that. And so I blew into it and I'm like, oh, it doesn't even work. It came all the way from America and it didn't even work. And so he says, wait, he smiles, he takes it. Well, let me try it.
Yeah.
And so he took it and he kind of blew over the hole. Like, it works. And so I couldn't wait to get it back. And I tried it. And then that was the rest of that. And so we shortly after that signed up for flute lessons. And so I started lessons and that's how I started.
So now when you were in England at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and so when your dad would bring stuff to you, now there was no lessons in England at the time, or when did you come back to the States?
Well, I came back to the States when I was 10, but we did actually find a teacher over there.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did sign up for lessons.
Okay.
And I went and we would drive. It was like 30 minutes or something like that, which was kind of a long way. It was a long time ago, and people and that culture in that area didn't, that wasn't really much of a thing that we saw anyway. We were living in a real small town. And so it was a long trip, 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back. Now here around here, it's nothing, but we would go and do lessons. And so during that time in driving to and from lessons, we had this cassette of James Galway, the famous flautist. I can't believe I just said flautist. I never say flautist, flutist. Okay. People always ask me, is it flutist or flautist? And I would say both are correct. But as James Galway said, let me put it this way. I don't play the flout. Yeah. So I always say flutist.
It depends on where you're from, I guess.
Yeah. It feels too fancy for me. So anyway, but flutist, flute player, those things. But he is a famous flutist, world famous. And so if you look up James Galway, you see like, 100 billion albums of that he's done. Okay. And there was this one from 1978 called The Magic Flute, James Galway and the Magic Flute. And so we would listen to that, I think, every single time we went to lessons. And so all those pieces on that album, I got into my head and they were very, very, very influential. And my dad, it was a lot of flashy, showy pieces. They're all classical. And then some mediums, and then a couple of ones that were really beautiful and slow. And he pointed to the cassette, I remember once, at the slowest one in the whole album, a beautiful piece by Robert Schumann. And he said, one day you'll be able to play like that. Wow. I said, and it just filled me with inspiration. And I just thought, and now I play that piece all the time. Wow. And it's a very simple, beautiful piece, but that album was very, very influential.
So is he still around, or?
Funny you should say that. Yeah, he passed away last September.
Oh, okay.
And so,
did you keep in contact with him, and did you show him now? As you got older and playing, did you show him, hey, I can play this now, or?
He was very much part of everything I did with lessons and with concerts and recitals and everything. So yeah, he saw the progression the whole time. And in fact, he came out here and visited me in December of 2019. Okay. Right before all of this business happened with the shutdown and all that. Yeah. So it was great because everything was wide open like it usually is or was. Mm-hmm. And so he got to see me doing tons and tons of concerts with different orchestras and different chamber groups and a few different churches and Christmas concerts, and it was fantastic. Okay. So he stayed here for about a month. Okay. So yeah. So now, and I thanked him over and over again. I've thanked him. Yeah, yeah. He knew how appreciative I was.
Which is actually needed more. Thank the teachers because it's
the teachers, thank the parents, thank the people who have put into your life. And absolutely. Yeah.
That's something that needs to be recognized for sure.
Oh yeah. We wouldn't be where we are. Yep.
So once you started learning the flute, you learned the basic technical techniques, you learn how to breathe, because I guess flute is a very, you're using your lungs, you're not, it's not just all whistle or eating a lemon and making your mouth, you're actually, you gotta breathe. It's a lot of technique breathing wise, right?
A lot of breathing, and it's actually very, very athletic, Yeah. It's funny. It doesn't look like it to somebody who doesn't know music, but the musicians, other musicians that I know, we always talk about this. It's very, very athletic. It's very, very, it takes a lot of energy, and you need to be in good shape. Now, if you're not, you can get by with things, okay, but only to a point, and you're going to be struggling a lot. So, string players, they're using these muscles and they're really working at it. Yeah. Wind players, wind and brass, and I'm a woodwind player. And so, it takes all this energy from the inside and it's a whole body thing. It's not, just from here up, from breathing into, and that's it. No, it's a lot more than that. So we sweat a lot, and it's important what we eat, and it's important to exercise and all of that. Wow. Yeah. Wow. And it's the same for a drummer. It's very, very athletic. Yeah, it's very, very physical. And very, very right. Physical. A lot of people just think, it's easy. Anybody can
or the clarinet. No, because I started out playing the trumpet when I was 6.
Oh, okay.
And
I didn't know that.
I'm like, you know, no, I was in the 6th grade, but I was 11 when I started playing the trumpet.
Okay.
And man, I tell you, I mean, just the it's not just the mouth, it's all the air, it's all breathing, you know. But then I quit and took up drums.
You found what you were meant to do, huh?
Which meant more physical work.
Yeah.
You know. So now did you go when you were, when was all that time? Was that in elementary, middle school? When you came back to the States, what was it like then? Did you get into school band at that time?
Yep.
Okay.
So by the time I came back to the States, they tested us and put us in the grades that matched up with, because it didn't line up exactly with the system in England. Mm-hmm. But they put me in 5th grade, and I don't remember when in the year that was, but it wasn't for too long. And then I was in 6th grade, and then our school in North Carolina had an orchestra and had a pretty good program. So I joined up with a school orchestra, and I was in 6th grade, but I was on the level of the 8th graders because I'd already been playing for a couple of years in England. Okay. And so that was an interesting thing, but great fun. And the band director, actually, his name was Mr. Cozart, like Mozart, but with a C instead. So Mr. Cozart, and he was an older man with bright white hair and a mustache and a very distinguished looking Southern accent. And it was an interesting character. And he had been my mom's piano teacher forever before. Okay. In North Carolina. So that was interesting and cool. But we were only there for about a year and a half. And then we went to Northern Virginia, about an hour outside of Washington, D.C. So that sort of changed things.
Wow. So you traveled around.
Yeah, we moved around a lot.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So once you got into high school, you graduated. Did you play any like ensembles in high school? Or did you do like flute competitions and stuff?
Yeah, I did flute competitions. I was in the band.
Yeah. Okay.
And we did competitions with a band, a marching band, and all that kind of stuff. But then I did private. Band. I was still in private lessons, and so I did recitals and I did competitions. And then getting into college, I did a whole lot more of all of that. Okay.
Now, where did you go to school in college?
College was Bowling Green State University.
Oh, Bowling Green. Okay.
Yeah, in Ohio.
Okay.
Just about 30 minutes south of Toledo. And
so, I've heard of Bowling Green. Yeah. So
I had this phenomenal.
You didn't go to college in North Carolina. This was.
Yeah, North Carolina. I'm from there. I was born there, but I was only there for about 6 years. And then we moved to England. When I came back, we were in North Carolina again, same house even, for a year and a half or so. And then, we went different directions. My parents got divorced, and my mom moved back to England.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And my dad and my brothers and myself, we all moved to Northern Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then I was there till the end of high school. Then I went to Ohio. They stayed in Virginia. Mm-hmm. And I went to Ohio to school, and then went from there. And I was then an adult. And so.
Yeah. So now you graduated. Now, did you study music? Was that your major?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you got your BA, what did you pursue? Did you think, okay, can I do this for a career? What's the next step? You know what? Because I mean, it's not like, when you're in a band, a guitar player, you could, join a band or whatever, or a drummer, you could join a band. But I would guess with playing a brass instrument, you could join an orchestra, you could do ensembles. So when you graduated from Bowling Green, what was the next step? Did you think professionally, like career-wise, or were you just thinking, I'm just going to just play, whatever?
I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I always wanted it to be in music. So, and I always loved playing. So, but exactly how that was going to take shape, I didn't know. And most people don't know exactly. They have to take auditions and accept a lot of rejections. Mm-hmm. That's just part of it. And then just, see where things go. Yeah. So I initially started the music education program, and I did follow that all the way through. So I got a degree in music education, but several years into it, I decided to also pick up music performance because so many of the classes are the same. And it ended up being like, I don't know, it was a very small number of courses that I had to add to get another degree and to focus even more on performance. So I did that. So then I graduated with a bachelor's of music in education and in performance. Okay. So I could have gone on to teach in high school or middle school, elementary school, anything like that. But, and I love teaching, but I didn't want to go that route unless I had to, because I didn't want to do all the other stuff that comes with teaching in schools. And so as it is now, fast forward all these years, I do go to high schools, but as a coach. And so I work with the marching bands, but I'm not an employee of the schools. And so I don't have to go there at 6 o'clock in the morning and stay until 10 o'clock at night. And do all the parent meetings and all that kind of stuff. And then I do private teaching.
Wow. Okay.
So, but to answer your question directly, you know, I finished school and I wasn't sure what to do, but I had these degrees and all these skills now from my flute teacher, who was a phenomenal flute teacher, and then all these other great professors and all these. You know. But what I did was I moved to New York City after that.
Okay.
For a short time.
Wow.
And to see what would happen there. And not a whole lot happened there, but I wasn't there for too long. And then I went and did an artist residency in Alabama, of all places. So I went from Manhattan to Selma, Alabama.
Wow.
And my musical partner I was working with said, you're talking too fast. Nobody can understand you. So I stopped somebody on the street. I was like, am I talking too fast? Do you understand what I'm saying? And he just looked at me and said, what? I guess I was talking too fast.
Well, you know, in the South, things are a little bit slower.
A little bit slower. And compared to Manhattan,
it'd be like us going back to North Carolina or wherever, and, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
It's like, Wow. So New York City.
Yeah, New York City.
Took a big bite out of the Big Apple, trying at least.
Yeah. I'm always glad. I'll always be glad that I did that.
Yeah.
I didn't stay there, but it was a great experience. It was.
Yeah. Did you audition for people there, or?
I did some auditions. I did some playing a little bit, but nothing too much came of things in New York. And it's a very, very interesting culture. And I didn't have any direct connections with the schools that were there, Juilliard or Manhattan School of Music and things like that. So I was really starting from nothing. But I loved the experience. I mean, it really, there's a lot to be said about that time. But what's interesting is I was taking auditions for different things, as you do as musicians. You do competitions, you do auditions for just about everything, right? This job, that opportunity, and just see where it goes. And so one of the things they auditioned for was the Jerusalem International Symphony Orchestra. And it was this festival orchestra where if you were accepted, then you would go to Israel for free, and your room and board, everything was paid for, and you just play concerts in this orchestra. And I was accepted. Wow. And so the year that I went to Jerusalem to do that was the year that I lived in New York.
Yeah.
So here I was in New York and really not connected to anybody or any place or anything, just kind of like, okay, what should I do here? How can I do this or that? And then I went to Israel in December, and I met half the people that lived in New York right near me, because they were all from Juilliard, Manhattan School, and Eastman School of Music, and all of that stuff. Yeah. So I'd say, where are you from? Oh, I live in New York. And they would live like a block away from me or something. So it was really interesting. We did concerts in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And so that was like almost a month.
Yeah.
And it was over Y2K. So it was 1999 going into 2000. Yeah, so that was very, very interesting. Wow. Because remember how freaked out everybody was about Y2K and what was going to happen?
Yeah.
I was in the Middle East during that time, and I thought, well, we'll see.
And nothing happened. You turned on
nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Nothing happened at all.
But we were in Jerusalem, and they're not allowed to celebrate those things. And so Jerusalem was very, very quiet. Here we is, it's the new year, but it's turning over the century, and there's nothing. But in Bethlehem, which is occupied by the Palestinians, they have all kinds of celebrations going on. So we went up to the top of the hotel on the roof, and most of us were Americans, and some from Israel and some from Germany and other countries. And so we were all celebrating, Happy New Year.
Yeah.
And we could see in Bethlehem all these fireworks. Poof, poof.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how we did Y2K.
Wow, that's awesome there. So
Yeah.
when you came from New York, what was the next phase? Did you make your way? How did you make your way? Move west. Go west, young lady.
Yeah. So while I was in Bowling Green, Ohio, I was going to a church across town, and one Sunday, how do I say this? My degree was almost over. I had maybe a year left.
Okay.
And one Sunday, the pastor said, or just before Sunday, he says, "Yeah, we're going to be joined by this church, this evangelist, this small team from this Calvary Chapel in California." And I thought, California, what in the world are they going to do out here in Bowling Green, Ohio? I felt bad for them because they don't know. There is nothing out here. There is nothing in Ohio, because for me, the school was fantastic. My teacher was phenomenal. It was the right place for me to go. God had designed it. I knew that and all that, but it was hard for me culturally because it was the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And I had been, I lived near London and near Washington, D.C., and I was very, very independent. I traveled everywhere. Yeah. And now it is a place surrounded by cornfields. And when I felt like I was going crazy, I would look at the map and say, I got to go somewhere and look and see where the nearest bold type city was. The old maps before cell phones. Yeah. Which one is bold type? Well, there's Columbus, and there's Chicago, and there's Detroit, and where can I just go get away and see more culture? And I had a hard time. And so the other freshmen my age thought I was crazy, and I thought they were crazy, because they hadn't really gone anywhere. Most of the people that I met at that time, was a real small circle, people in my dorm and people. So these people came from California. And I thought, what in the world are they going to do out here? And I thought, they're just going to be so bored and they're going to hate it out here. Well, they had their own reasons, and they had prayed about. There was a reason that they came to that particular area, but they got off the plane and they were so happy and joyful.
Because
they said, California. And they said, it's so green. And I looked around and I was like, well, yeah. And so it was like 3 years later or something like that. I ended up finally visiting out here. Yeah. And when we were descending on the plane, I'm looking out the window. I'm like, well, no wonder they were saying it's so green. I've never seen a place that was so brown as like here.
Desert land.
Everything. Because I had not been west of, I guess it was Kansas at that time. Mm-hmm. So I'd never seen a place so brown and deserty. But anyway, that's how I met people out here in California. Wow. And we just made an instant connection. I think culturally and their backgrounds and my backgrounds, we were used to. We just really connected. It was a God thing. So and they said, you should come out and visit. And I said, okay, sure. Wow. And but it didn't work out, and that's a long story. But and it's a funny story too. But it didn't work out for 3 whole years, and then finally it did. And I came out and visited. And when I did, it was a small Calvary Chapel church, and I just felt like I was home.
Now this was the amazing. Second time, right? The
first time I came out and visited. Second time I saw them.
Okay.
But it was the first time I came out to California.
Okay.
And I felt like I was home, and it was amazing. I thought, what is this? And I connected again with those people, and then more people that were in the church. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, you should move out here. And I laughed, and I said, oh, no. I said, I'm never going to move to California. No, thanks anyway. Yeah. But no, you guys are great, and I love you guys. But and I'll visit again. But I'm never moving to California.
No.
They said, well, you should move. I said, no, I'm going to move to New York.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, you're crazy. Oh, I'd heard that before. So I said, well, they don't know, because they're not artists and musicians. And so New York is the place, that's where we're supposed to be. And so I did move to New York, and that was that whole story episode thing. And then I moved to Alabama to the artist residency, and that was already meant to be a short-term thing. Yeah. And then it was time to move again. And there's a lot of stories in all of this that we're skipping over, but it was time to move again. And I knew at that time that I had to be here Now I thought it was only going to be for a couple of months,
Yeah.
and then I'll go back to New York. But I knew anyway that this is where I had to come first,
Wow.
and reset and recover. And there had been a lot of things that had happened, and I needed to recover. And I had my family. I loved my family, and they were in different places on the East Coast, but this was the family I needed to be with, this church. And so I came out here, and I said to God, I said, well, I'm going to wait till I hear from you to make my next move, whether I should go back to New York and start a career there or what. Well, he never told me to move.
Wow.
So I'm still here.
Well,
And
yeah,
so,
I mean, you took steps of faith. Now, during your whole moves from England, well, from North Carolina to England to, going to Bowling Green and then New York, were you a Christian at that time or no?
I was.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. I became a Christian when I was 4 or 5.
Okay. And so when you got connected with the people here that told you to come out here, and how did that all come about once you got here? Did you continue to do your music, or how did that all work out?
Well, once again, I moved to a place where I had no musical connections whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I was already good friends with the people in the church here. So I came, and I didn't have a job or anything, and no students or anything like that. And I was having a pretty hard time with the things that had happened out east. And so really it was a time to rest and recover and reset. Yeah. And so there was a lady in the church that let me move in with her, and it was a wonderful thing for a short-term thing. And so I lived with her and was able to help her out with a little bit of stuff here and there. And I just went to all the church services, and it was a very active little church. And so I went to all the Bible studies and all of the Saturdays, Sunday services, the Sunday night services, and just played worship all the time. And so that was a neat time spiritually, but it was a really neat time musically too. It was weird because my background is classical training, but I didn't have any classical musicians to play with out here for quite a while. And so I'd play all my classical stuff at home. It got pretty lonely, but that's what it was. I practiced all my scales and etudes and solo pieces and all these things at home. But out and about, I was playing worship all the time. And so I got to be very, very comfortable with all of let's say Calvary Chapel and Vineyard type songs that some of them, quite a few of them, I didn't know. I knew all the hymns because the churches that I was raised in were more, a bit more conservative and hymn based, let's just say. A lot of different denominations, but so I knew the hymns, but I got familiar with all these other songs, and I just played all the time, and so it was a really, really neat time.
Wow, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So now, take me back to when you first heard the gospel. I mean, how did that touch your heart, especially as you got older and you were moving around? How did that when you first heard about Jesus, when you first heard about God? Good question. How did you know, okay, this is real?
Well, my dad prayed with me. Mm-hmm. When I remember kneeling down by my bed, and my dad prayed with me when I was, whatever that was, 4 or 5. I asked Jesus into my heart. I understood what it was. I understood what I was doing. So I became a Christian, and I never, I never strayed away from it, but up and down from there, as people do. So I never went away from it, but as I traveled and went through different things, and I grew. We were always going to churches. Wherever we moved, we would go to a different church every Sunday until we found where we were meant to be as a family.
Yeah.
And so we did go to a lot of different denominations, and so we saw a lot of different service styles and preaching styles and all of that. But they were always Bible teaching Protestant churches. And so in my personal walk, I was always asking for God's will and direction, and learning as you do, learning who God is, and it's complicated, isn't it? And I'm thinking back to all of the different things I was taught, and all of the things that we went through as a family. I always knew that he was real. I always knew that it was truth. But my problem was that I was human. Turns out there's a lot of problems with being human. As I struggled with different things, I would doubt certain things, but I always knew that he was real. And when I would go through different crises, our family, when my parents got divorced, I would cling to him, and it's about that's the best way I can put it. Really, he's taking me through some very, very dark times.
Yeah.
And I didn't always understand how or why, and I often misunderstood him as more of a God of wrath. I think that was wrong. I didn't know. And I've learned more over the years about his grace, but it's a journey. It's a journey, but he's taking me through, and I've always seen his hand. I can say that. Yeah. And I think about those dark times, and I couldn't have made it through without him. I can't imagine how people do it without God.
Yeah. And
I understand why they go to other things, drugs and alcohol and whatever other things.
Yeah.
And I know Christians do that too, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think once people know that, once they come to God, they see the realness in him. They see, wow, you guided me through that. And, and I was kind of, way over here, and you brought me through something that was very deep and dark. And I think it just takes God to do that. And it's only by his grace, and even if we don't know God and we don't know, you may go through life not even knowing who God is, but God has always known who you are. Mm-hmm. He always knows us. He knows us, mm-hmm. So, and then you think back, when you become a believer, you think back, like you were saying, you think back to all those times you went through this dark period, but he was always there. He was just waiting for you to just, acknowledge that,
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that old hymn. You know that old hymn called Softly and Tenderly? Jesus is calling.
Yeah.
Great old hymn.
Yeah.
And he is. He's calling for us, and he's not forceful about it. He's softly and tenderly calling. And he is there, just like he said.
He's there. Yeah. So now how did you end up playing at Calvary? Because we played on the worship team there at Costa Mesa, for a while. And how did you end up going to Calvary? That had to be an adventure.
I'm going to quote Don Stewart here. I'm going to say, I'm going to make a short story long. To make a short story long.
Yeah.
Let's see. I met Kathy Gibson. All right.
Yeah.
And so Kathy Gibson was the worship leader for Pastor Chuck for 20 years, something like that.
Yeah. She's one of the
but I have a friend, a guitar friend, Sam. You know Sam? I think you know Sam.
Yeah.
But Sam Padilla.
Yeah, I know Sam. Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, I had a passion plant. You know what a passion plant is? It's a really neat plant, and they have these flowers, these passion flowers that are just amazing. Well, my mom had this passion plant. She gave it to me so that I can take it across country from North Carolina over here. And I really wanted to keep this thing alive. Yeah. And it started getting white spots on the leaves. I'm like, oh no, it's not looking good. And I think it's going to die. So I went to Home Depot to try to figure out what kind of spray to get, or, how to keep this thing alive. And I talked to this kid, and he says, well, I don't know. I don't know what to do. But the man you need to talk to is right here, Sam. He's going to know. And so Sam comes along, and he's all, enthusiastic, and he's an expert in all things plants. Okay. And he's in that department. And I said, oh, hi. listen, I have this plant and it's dying and I don't understand. And so he says, he takes this can of spray and he says, what you need is right here. This is what you need. Now, I thought while I'm there, I need to ask questions. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm straining and I'm looking at the directions on the can.
Mm-hmm.
He thought I was looking at his fingernails. And he got all self-conscious because this is his right hand, his guitar, his picking hand. He goes, oh, I'm a guitarist. You know, my fingernails are kind of. Now the whole conversation changes. I don't care about the plant anymore.
Yeah.
I said, you're a guitarist? You play guitar? Oh, yeah, I play flamenco guitar. And I said, that's awesome. I play the flute. And he said, well, I've been always looking for a flute player to play with. I said, we should play sometime. And I was only in California for like 6 months or something like that. And I was really lonely for like other musicians to play with, classical and other things. And because I was just knowing the people in church and doing that. So I was ready to branch out and like, you know, let's play some music. And he says, well, you know, but I'm in the middle of this construction project. I'm working on my bathroom. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, I wanted to play like right now.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, how long do you think? And he said, well, 6 months or something. I wrote it on my calendar.
Yeah.
I came back 6 months later to the day.
Wow.
I said, hey, remember?
Yeah.
I said, are you ready to play? And he said, this person's crazy. You know? So anyway, we started playing together and we got together. We became good friends and we started playing quite a bit and doing a lot of improv. And he had written a lot of songs. And then several years later, 5, 6 years later, something like that. And he started going to this school of ministry and he met this guy called Jim White. And so Jim introduced him to Kathy. And then he came back and said, Steph, I met this person. I met this, you know, the guy, Jim White's a great singer. And I met this lady, Kathy Getz. She's written over 800 songs. She's amazing. You know, you've got to meet her. Yeah. And they're going to come to my studio and you got to come. And so that's how that happened. And so Kathy and Jim went to Sam's studio and he said, come and bring your flutes. And so I brought this flute here. Yeah. And then a couple of other flutes, different sizes, different kinds. And we played some stuff. And Kathy said, well, you have to do an Evening with Jesus concert.
Yeah.
And she said, but you're going to have an album.
Yeah. I was going to say, you guys did a recording, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a recording because she said that we had to.
Yeah.
Now, we did not have to, but that was Kathy's way. You know, she was like that. She would push you into projects and get people being all productive. And so we made this album. And in all of that, she said, hey, where do you go to church? And are you free on Sunday? At that time I was, because I was between churches and I was looking around. And so I said, yeah, I can come. And so she introduced me to Pastor Chuck in the middle of the week. I didn't know who he was, never heard of him. Okay, Pastor Chuck.
Yeah.
And so no clue. And I'd heard people talk about some Pastor Chuck because I was a part of a Calvary Chapel, but I'd never met him and I didn't read anything about him and I didn't know any history about him. So he was talking to somebody else in the front office and she brought me in and we waited and waiting to meet Pastor Chuck. Okay, it was no big deal. And then he stopped talking to the other person and she said, Pastor Chuck, I want you to meet my new friend and she's a flute player. And he said, oh, nice to meet you. And it was great to meet him. Yeah. And that was that. Yeah. And so I came on Sunday and I played and it went well. And she said, well, are you free next Sunday? And I said, yeah. You free next Sunday? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
And then
one day,
Sunday. and then one day they didn't say, are you free next Sunday? And I thought, well, I'm not going to. And maybe this is her way of saying, I don't want you to come anymore. So I didn't come.
Yeah.
And June was there. Remember June on the violin? Yeah. And she said, well, where were you, honey?
Yeah.
like I was skipping out or something. I said, well, I didn't know that I was supposed to come. She says, well, you know.
Yeah, that's June. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I was there from then on.
I think I remember that first Sunday you came, you know.
I remember
we never had a flute player. I mean, it was very interesting, but it was, I think it could have been, I don't know if it was a hymn Sunday or we actually had the band. I'm not sure. Or it was a Sunday night.
I think it was
a Sunday night or
I think it was a Sunday morning and we had the band there. It was not a hymn Sunday.
Okay.
I don't think it was, but anyway, I remember you because you were pacing back and forth near the buffet area, right?
Yeah.
And you were looking all down, and you said, "Oh," and I was watching you going back and forth between this buffet table. Well, there's nothing on the table,
Yeah.
There's
I was
just a
kinda
wooden
nervous
table
at
back
the-
there. It was because you said, "Oh, there's no food here. June's not here." And June had been sick for a while, so I didn't meet her right away.
Yeah.
And I thought, what's he talking about, some June? Well, then I understood, because June would come and she would bring crystal dish with the whipped cream, the strawberries, the sandwiches, and took care of the whole group back there.
Yeah, she would bring a whole, chicken.
Those are amazing times, though, because we were a family back there. It was a small family within a large church, and
I know.
Getting to see Pastor Chuck backstage and seeing what amazing man he was really, it was just an incredible time of ministry and getting all of us getting to know each other back there. It was amazing.
Especially Easter. I mean, Easter was like, with all the rehearsals leading up to, the Easter weekend. I mean,
those are big days, big events.
It's like, wow, I mean, it would take me like a week or two to even calm down from that whole weekend,
Yeah.
From the rehearsals to the weekend to the concert that we had. We would always do a Friday night concert.
Yeah, that's right.
Evening with Jesus. So that was a long weekend, Yeah. So now you're at Calvary. You're playing, you're getting involved. How did the OC Orchestra come into play? I want to bring that in the picture, because you played for the Orange County Symphony Orchestra, right?
Orange County Symphony, but not the Pacific Symphony. The Pacific Symphony is the one that plays in Costa Mesa at Segerstrom Hall, but this is Orange County Symphony, and they changed over a few years ago, so now it's Orchestra Collective of Orange County. So their website is ococ.org, and so I play in that, and then the Orange County Wind Symphony, which is like a band. There's no string players, but it's on adults and professionals.
Wow.
And then I play with a lot of different chamber groups, small groups, violin, cello, and flute, and a lot of flute and pianos and recitals and a lot of different things like that.
So you're still a part of that orchestra now?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, when they start back up, so it should be not too long.
And actually, I was going to say, when would that be? Because now that things are opening
they have
back
started up, but with just string players. So as far as the entire orchestra, hopefully soon, but just not yet.
Oh, okay. Did you guys do any virtual concerts or anything? Did you have to do like a virtual play your part?
We did not as an entire orchestra. There were some people that did some things as small groups, but
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I know, you guys have a lot of flute players and brass players. And, I mean, I guess it's hard to get lost when you're playing with that many people, but you played in marching bands and stuff, right? You played in that. So it's kind of, you know your part. Now, if you hear somebody playing the wrong part, can you like sitting next to them and giving them a nub and go, hey, that's
give
not
them a nudge, give them a kick. Hey,
hey, that's not your part. That's my part.
We can do that, but they tend to frown upon that.
Well, yeah, I would get so.
It's not really so professional.
So, in closing, now, what would you say to someone who wants to? It's a two-part question for you, but what would you say someone who wants to pursue music for a career? How would they go about it, and what would they have to do?
So, if you're serious about pursuing music, you got to practice. So that's one thing, to be diligent about practicing and being disciplined. If you're in high school, and obviously, I would assume you're a part of the band, orchestra, jazz group, whatever your school or community has available, and you want to be involved in those things so that you can be improving on your skills. If it's possible, take lessons. And nowadays, one way or another, pretty much everybody can take lessons somehow. Even if you have no money, no means, or something like that, you can usually get on the internet and learn. And there are people that are giving lessons, more and more people, more than ever before. So as long as you've got an internet connection, right? But as much as possible, get lessons and get teaching and get connected to the people that can help you in those higher levels too. So, you don't have to go to college, but it's hard to justify not if you're really going to go that direction. You need to be studying with people that are professionals in the field. Let's just say that. And what kind of professional do you want to be? Do you want to be in an orchestra? Do you want to be, do you want to go the classical route? Do you want to be doing worship? There's so many different ways that you can go, but I think you need to be in a position of always learning. I do think that. I don't think any of us are at a point where we've got it. We're just great, and we don't need to learn anymore. So if we feel like that, that's a very dangerous position. So even the best classical musicians, they're learning from their colleagues and people that have gone before them, and they're at home with their tuner and their metronome and their etudes and their scales. And because if you don't practice and really, really stay with it, and try to be getting better, then you're just actually going backwards, So somehow you need to be connected to those professionals that are in the field, but usually I would recommend going to study music at a school. I'm saying you don't have to, and I can understand. And if somebody's like, no, I don't want to go that, okay, we can talk about that. But usually I'm going to say, go to a school and study and get into a music performance program or music education, minor in it, major in it, and see. But as a Christian, I always tell people, pray. You've got to pray about where God wants you. And if you don't know right away, you don't have to know, but pray for open doors and closed doors, and ask God to direct your steps, and He will. And good example, when I graduated from high school, I knew that I wanted to go to school in England because I'd lived there before and I wanted to live there again. And I figured if I went to college there, then I wouldn't have to worry about work visas and things like that. I would just be going as a student and then go from there. I don't know where. So I wanted to go to college in England. And I knew that's what I was going to do. And so my mom was living over there still. So with her husband, her second husband, and their kids. And so when I graduated from high school, I did not want to go to college right away. I wanted to take a year and figure out where I wanted to go. And nowadays, I guess they call it a gap year. But they didn't used to call it that, but that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I did. And so I graduated, and then I went on a one-way ticket to London. And I spent, I think, 2.5 or so months with my mom, and took some lessons over there from a lady in Cambridge. And my idea was to figure out with her, and while I was there, which school to audition for, and what the requirements were and things like that, because I didn't know. I had no idea. I just knew that I wanted to study flute. I knew that I wanted to pursue that all the way. That's all I knew. I had a passion and I was following it. But I was a Christian, you see, so I was always praying, okay, God, your will. I don't know, but your will. And He knew, and I didn't. So surrender yourself to God's will. And so, but here I am, just like, okay, I want to play the flute. I don't know what that means. And I want to glorify God. I want God to be glorified. And so I'm in England. And then I said, okay, I'm ready to go back to the States, get all my stuff and go right back and then audition and then stay there and go to school. Seemed good to me. And so that was 1990. And so that was December of 1990. I came back to the States to get all the stuff and say goodbye to people at the church and my friends' family and everything. And then go back to England. And January 1991 came. And that was when the Gulf War started. And so we were watching the TV constantly, the news, because George Bush set a deadline for Saddam Hussein. Deadline was January 15th. And if he didn't comply, then we would go into the war. And he didn't. And so we went into the war, the Gulf War. And at that time, they said, I said, oh, no. Because they said the two most dangerous places in the whole world to fly between were Washington, D.C. and London. Oh, it's exactly the two cities.
That's where you go.
That I was going to be flying between. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And so my dad said, well, you can go if you really want to. But I would prefer that you didn't.
Yeah.
I was devastated.
Yeah. Wow.
And I didn't go back to England for I don't know how many years. So my life took a whole different direction. And so I started taking lessons at the University of Maryland as a just private, not as a student of the university, but privately from the flute professor there. And it was him that gave me different suggestions, different schools to audition for, different programs. And one of them was Bowling Green State University in Ohio. He said, it's a good friend of mine, Judy Bentley, that teaches there. She's fantastic. And I think you do very well there. And he recommended some other schools there, also around the States. But so I went and auditioned and made the decision to go to Bowling Green. And she was phenomenal. It's exactly where I was supposed to go. And so many good things happened there. And of course, then that's where I ultimately met the people from California. And then God directed things, and I came out here, and so many good things happened. So much healing happened here, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And then I met Pastor Chuck and Kathy, and so many amazing things happened there at Costa Mesa Calvary Chapel. And so you look back, and it's amazing to see God's hand.
Yeah.
Yes, I had a dark time here, and I almost died here, and then this happened, but look how God worked.
Yeah.
This amazing thing happened, and he brought me up. And because of that dark time, I learned this, and I grew in this way. And then I could help this person, and then I could have this ministry over here. And so, a broken pot comes to mind. It falls apart, and then he puts it together, and you've got all these weird cracks.
Yeah.
But and so it's amazing to see. So that's your complicated answer, and not a complete one at that. But
no, because I was going to say, somebody for those who don't have a faith, what would you say to that person that's like, well, you had God and God did this and da 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 da, but for someone who doesn't have that relationship, what would be
sometimes I think about
what would be the thing that they need to do to have that relationship?
This is tough. I mean, God gives us free will. If you want to choose to reject him, you absolutely can. But it's hard for us who know Jesus and what he has done for us to see that decision being made. You're like, you're missing out. You're giving up everything. And here it is, this free gift of salvation. You have nothing to lose and everything to lose at the same time. So it's hard to see that. But, this line that people say, that's nice that you have God. Sometimes I think about two neighbors and how the sunshine is outside. We live in Southern California, the sunshine every day. And I think about someone that says, that's nice that you have God. And I think that's like saying, it's nice that you've got sunshine. I think, but you're my neighbor. You have sunshine too. You walk outside, there's the sunshine. You have Jesus too, but you've chosen to not accept him. Exactly. And he's waiting for you. And he loves you, and he's gentle about it. Again, back to that song, softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling for you and for me. And so what do I say? I'd say, well, it's your choice, but you live the best life ever if you accept him. Yeah. Is it going to be all roses? Definitely not, but you won't know and understand things until you actually try and ask him into your heart and to see. Put him to the test. I don't know if you're real, so prove it to me. And he will. Yeah. And so as far as following music, my advice is still similar. Even if they don't believe, I'm going to say, pray for God's direction. But and then on the secular side of things, I'm still going to say, look for different schools and look for programs that you're interested in. If you're crazy about marching band, obviously you've got to look for a school that has a marching band and all that kind of stuff. If you are, into music education, you want to go teach at a high school. If you want to be, full speed ahead, concerts. And if you want to do a conservatory route, then you can do that. If you have proven to be amazing and good everywhere you go, then okay. But if not, then maybe you want to look at other avenues too, like a double major. Are you interested in engineering too? Because music typically doesn't make a lot of money. So is that important to you to make a good living, or is it important just to get by? So everybody's different, but it takes a lot of discipline and I think it takes an entrepreneurial mind and I think outside the box mind to stay in music. Don't you think?
I think we are a very unique people.
Absolutely.
Music people in general. I think we just have a different mindset.
We're a different breed.
Than we are. I mean, we're weird. And people, people that
Proud
that they don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, and
very.
It's I think only musicians. I think God just created, when He created people, I think musicians, we just have a different mindset, just a different mentality than.
Yep.
And not saying that we're better. It's not saying that we're better than anybody. It's just there's a certain, because when I'm talking to different musicians, there's a different click that you just have with people compared to somebody that more of an understanding. And so I totally get what you're saying, but we are we are a weird breed.
I think about Kathy Gibson a lot.
In a good way.
Yeah. I think about Kathy Gibson a lot and all of the different characters she dealt with, including me. And we were just, I thought of us in the back room, in the green room there, as this one giant dysfunctional family, And here she was handling everybody. She was the leader and she was just incredible. Remember, she would just go after this person and that person that had these different problems and just help it to happen. And just really, really different kinds of personalities who had great talent, but couldn't, just were really struggling or couldn't fit in with everybody else. And so,
that's awesome. So now if people, especially in Orange County, they want to take lessons from you, where can they reach you? Do you have a website? Do you have, how can they reach you if they want to take lessons from Stephanie, the world-class flute player? She's not just a flute player. You play clarinet. You play
clarinet, saxophone, flute, guitar, piano, but mostly flutes. Flutes is what I specialize in. Secondary to that would be more clarinet and saxophone. So, like when I play in musicals and things, those are the three instruments I play. The different saxophones, clarinets, and flutes.
Okay. So do you have a website or like a?
I do not have a. Just call me.
Well, I don't want to put your number out there on social media. So maybe they can connect you on Facebook. How's that?
Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, Facebook's fine. I'm fine. You can email me. My email is stephaniegetz@gmail.com. I need to get together and get a website. It's at one point I started to do a little bit of that, but I haven't got my act together with a website.
They're pretty easy to do.
So they say.
You just get a website name.
So, in the meantime, email's fine, calling's fine, texting fine, Facebook is fine, Facebook Messenger and all that good stuff. But I love to teach and I do a lot of private lessons right now. It's mostly online. So Zoom, FaceTime, Google Meets, whatever.
Okay. I'll make sure I put that in the link that they could reach out to you.
Yeah, that'd be good. And a lot of people here like to do the Certificate of Merit. I do the Certificate of Merit through the Music Teachers Association of California. And that's a good program that a lot of people like to connect up with and go through the different levels and get certificates. So,
awesome. Okay. Well, it's been awesome talking.
It's been great talking to you. It's been too long.
I know. Like I said earlier, I haven't seen you in almost 4 or 5 years. And so, I'm just getting all my musician friends together and, anybody that's available that wants to share their musical adventures and share how they became a Christian and what God's doing in their life, let's bring it on, So Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. And it's been fun to watch your other interviews too. You're doing great.
Well, I'll try to do the best. I appreciate it. You know, it's not about subscribers for me. It's just, just getting it out there, because everybody has a story to tell. Your story and everybody that came before you and people that are coming next. I try to do at least 2 interviews a week, at least. You kind of have to keep it consistent. So
that's true.
But thanks for giving up a little bit of your time to spend with Power and Pounders.
I appreciate
it.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
And we'll definitely be talking to you soon.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Thanks for watching Power and Pounders on YouTube and Facebook. You can also listen to the podcast on Anchor FM, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. God bless.